Chris Redfield. Jill Valentine. Barry Burton. Rebecca Chambers. Albert Wesker. Resident Evil.
Resident Evil is one of Capcom's greatest commercial flagship that ever started in the mid-90s and became one of the biggest franchises in the survival horror genre in video gaming history. As a kid, I remember my uncle used to have the PlayStation that has Twisted Metal 4 in his own library until I saw Resident Evil in the corner of that library. When I first saw that front cover, I didn't think much of it at the time until I played the game and I was like, nope. Fucking nope. That is until I gotten older is when I watched Shaun of the Dead, Zombieland, even George A. Romero's Land, Dawn, and Day of the Dead. There are other zombie games I played, such as House of the Dead Arcade, Left 4 Dead 2, even including Call of Duty Zombies in the past, but I never even got into the Resident Evil in its storyline though. It's partially due to the tight-knit conspiracy theory that Resident Evil fan base wants to put it together as some sort of a mystery, which sort of adds the charm of this game of you being as the detective. Before we get into the video, we need to explain about what a survival horror genre is.
According to the database, survival horror is a video game genre that emphasizes vulnerability, resource management, and puzzle solving within a horror-themed environment. Survival horror games emerged in the early to mid-1990s, with Sweet Home, (1989), and Alone in the Dark, 1992, being key early examples. However, the genre was truly defined and popularized by Resident Evil 1996, which coined the term survival horror.
There's also a clock tower that nobody else talks about. Clock Tower is a survival horror game that was released on the Super Famicom in 1995, and it was recently released onto the PlayStation Network. What's so awesome about this one is that the graphics are insane, even on the Super Famicom in today's standards. You play as Jennifer, who has to run, hide, and defend yourself against the Scissor Man while uncovering the secret of the Burroughs Mansion. There are puzzle solving, and oftentimes you have to run away from the Scissor Man and hiding. There are often clues and vague hints, such as like you need the pesticide in order to clear out the meat locker, and oftentimes the Scissor Man will appear out of nowhere and start chasing after you yet again. Overall, Clock Tower is a cult classic that comes straight out of the mid-90s as a survival horror genre. I might talk about it for another time, but now I'm just getting ahead of myself and should be back on the Resident Evil documentary.
Resident Evil.
Upon starting the game, you got two characters you can select, Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, which nothing seems out of the ordinary at first until I saw their stats in the in-game inventory. For example, Chris Redfield starts off with a knife and has a 6-box inventory and must have to find small keys in order to unlock drawers for ammunition. While Jill Valentine, on the other hand, starts off with a knife and pistol and an 8-box inventory and has a lockpick.
There's a bit of fun fact here. In the Japanese version of Resident Evil called Biohazard, Chris Redfield is labeled hard difficulty, while the other is labeled easy difficulty. The reasons they changed this is mainly the replayability in choosing different characters with their own skills in the gameplay.
Which I figured that's probably what was going on when I recently played it on the PlayStation 5 very recently, and didn't remember much afterwards. Without any delay, let's begin. Our story takes place in the summer of July 1998, and we're given the rundown by Chris Redfield.
Alpha Team is flying around the forest zone situated in northwest Raccoon City, where we're searching for the helicopter of our compatriots Bravo Team, who disappeared during the middle of our mission.
Found it?
No, I haven't found it yet. Bizarre murder cases have recently occurred in Raccoon City. There are outlandish reports of families being attacked by a group of about 10 people. Victims were apparently eaten. Bravo Team went to the hideout of the group and disappeared.
The game starts us off with the bizarre murder cases that were done outside of Raccoon City by a bunch of cultists, which prompted Bravo Team to go investigate, and hasn't been heard since, which prompted Alpha Team to search for their missing compatriots. Even though they found Bravo Team's helicopter, they soon quickly discovered why though. STARS Alpha Team was being attacked by a bunch of dogs that appeared out of nowhere in the woods, and one of them, Joseph Frost, was killed in the skirmish, and Brad Vicker leaving his team behind. Knowing the shit that got escalated pretty quickly, knowing that their ride had fled, they decided to run into the mansion itself that's out in the middle of the woods. Known as the Spencer's Mansion. A bit of context, if you please. The Spencer's Mansion was owned by an aristocratic gentleman by the name of Oswald E. Spencer, who hired a construction worker that worked on it since 1962 all the way up to 1967. So why a mansion is out in the middle of the woods is unusual, but the unusualness is starting to kick in. Once the STARS Alpha Team arrive and starting to assess the situation they got themselves in.
There are only 3 STARS members left now. Captain Wesker, Jill, and myself. We don't know where Barry is.
I don't know what happened.
Barry! Where's Barry?
Well, I'm sorry, but he's probably...
No. What is that?
I'll go and check.
Okay, Jill and I will stay in the hall in case of an emergency.
Chris? Take care.
And with that, the game begins. The gameplay itself runs tank control system, much in the same control method to Alone in the Dark in 1992. Now here's a bit of a fun fact about Resident Evil's creation. See, Resident Evil was originally going to be Sweet Homes on the Super Nintendo at one point, but it was cancelled mainly due to the licensing ran out. So they scrapped it, but also changed it into a different direction by using the different control method. And that control method would be, of course, the tank controls that Alone in the Dark from 1992 is using. That's right, Alone in the Dark from 1992 is the source of inspiration for Resident Evil's creation. And with that brief history, we encounter our first zombie.
Oh shit, here we go again.
The first time I saw this zombie, that thing scared the shit out of me. But as an adult, however, he looks goofy as all fucking hell. The body that is lying on the ground is Kenneth, one of the members of STARS Bravo Team. And it just so happens that he only has 2 clips of pistol ammunition. I'm not sure why Kenneth is in the sitting lounge area, but thinking back on it, I think he got cornered and was unable to kill the zombie before it killed him.
Wesker? Jill?
After our encounter with the first zombie, they somehow disappeared from the main hall. The one thing I find it sus is that Jill's pistol is on the ground. It led me with two interesting possibilities. Either she accidentally dropped it and had to flee to another room, or something more sinister than it's led on. We'll get back to it in just later, but now let us explore the Spencer's Mansion. The game itself has a huge exploration, where you had to visit hallways, rooms, revisiting certain rooms in particular that needs a key in order to unlock said doors. There's also safe rooms that you can just run in and store key critical items in the inventory chest just to free up the inventory space. But there's also a fancy typewriter that you can actually save and pick things up later. But you see, casual speedrunners don't usually use the typewriter while speedrunning Resident Evil. And yes, that is actually the thing, because you can actually beat this game in under either 2 hours or 3 hours. But for casual players who are new to this, go slow and take their time and effort just to uncover the mystery that this game is known for.
Like take for example, the botany book about medicinal herbs. It cues in on the medical herbs that are used in order to heal from taking damage, green, blue, and red herbs. The green one recovers your health, the blue one cures any poison toxins, while the red herb doesn't do anything. It cites here, it can be mixed with other herbs in order to have any effects.
This is a very helpful tip if you wanted to heal in a pinch. In fact, you can actually find the herbs in the water fountain room with the piranha plant inside. But be sure to bring the bag of chemicals with you in order to kill the piranha plant. Otherwise, you're not going to get the key in order to unlock the other rooms. Remember how I said that this game is a massive exploration? Well, that's because some of the rooms requires keys in order to actually enter into the rooms that you can't even enter previously. And not to mention, of course, there is also puzzles that you need to solve in order to get the key critical items. So in other words, this is more of a backtracking, but also revisiting certain rooms in order to solve puzzles. Resident Evil is one of those games that doesn't hold your hand unless you know exactly where the fuck to go. For example, you could take this broken shotgun with you in order to replace it with a much better shotgun in the shotgun room trap. Now you look like a hunter that's running around shotgunning zombies to death. I forgot to mention that ammo is completely scarce, unless of course you have keys for the drawers or just a lockpick. Either way, it's pretty much just a situation of just run or avoid or just attack. And with that being said, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this game. Once we return to the main hall, we find ourselves alone in order to find what's left of Bravo Team, even including Alpha Team, in order to find an escape route out of the Spencer's Mansion. As you're navigating through hallways and killing zombies, you may recall that Chris Redfield mentioned about a bizarre murder cases happening outside of Raccoon City. STARS sent Bravo Team to investigate the hideout of the group, and was never been reported within 24 hours. That's right. You've only been playing for about few minutes, and now you're starting to realize that this is the hideout of the group that was mentioned. But it still doesn't explain about the zombies, the traps, or the puzzles in each and every other rooms. You come into this room, which looks like a dormitory of some sort, and then you find a journal that's on the desk. And ladies and gentlemen, this diary right here sheds some light on what is going on in the Spencer's Mansion. According to the diary, they were working on biological weapons, mainly a creature that he described as a skinless gorilla, which is going to be important later into the game itself. It also mentions about an accident in the basement lab, and folks, what I can only describe is that this guy is turning into a zombie, and it's graphic and detailed. But it also explains about the biggest chunk of the mystery as to why they're zombies, puzzles, even including traps that are actually in the Spencer's Mansion. The reasons the traps and puzzles are there in order to prevent someone, such as like STARS, from finding the secret underground laboratories where the biological weapons are being created.
Biological warfare, also known as biowarfare, is the use of disease-causing agents, like bacteria, viruses, or toxins, to harm or kill humans, animals, or plants. It's a form of warfare that relies on the ability of these agents to multiply and spread, causing illness, death, and societal disruption. Biological warfare has a long history, with examples of its use dating back to ancient times, and continues to be a concern in the modern era due to advancements in biotechnology.
Keep this in mind, folks, that the biological warfare was banned and outlawed by the Geneva Protocol in 1925 for the use of the biological weapons. That is until the former US President Richard Nixon addressed the issue across the nation that he wanted to ban the stockpile use of biological weapons on November 25, 1969, when he was in office. The BWC Act, otherwise known as the Biological Weapons Convention, was drafted, planned, and was finalized in 1972, until a few years later, in March of 1975 is when it was enforced. With that being said, who's behind all of this? Later in the game, you find one of the survivors of Bravo Team, Rebecca Chambers, who I am not kidding is the youngest member in STAR's team. According to her profile, she's 18. And no, I'm not kidding. Rebecca Chambers says that she joined STARS last month, right before she was deployed. She also mentions that the chopper that she was in had an engine failure and had to prepare emergency landing. What's so odd is that she made for sure that it was already been checked right before she was deployed, meaning that the engine has been tampered with. With that being said, Rebecca Chambers will occasionally appear out of nowhere and help you out on your exploration. Much of the same way with Barry Burton if you're playing as Jill Valentine.
What is it?
Watch out! It's a monster!
Let me take care of this.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that Barry Burton can only be shown up in Jill Valentine's scenario, while Rebecca Chambers only shows up in Chris's scenario. You can think of them as friendly NPCs that helps you out in times of troubles. Remember how I said you need to grab the broken shotgun and bring it with you to the shotgun room trap? This little hallway is a trap if you attempt to remove the shotgun from the lounge area and come back to it, it has the ceiling drop down. Whoever designed this room must have really doesn't want anybody else grabbing that shotgun as an advantage. After exploring the room and hidden switches, you come across a letter that's on the desk. It says here that he's working for a pharmaceutical and was working on the virus that they were studying on, further cementing on the whole bioweapons project. The one thing that stands out from the letter is that he mentions about a pharmaceutical he works for, which it doesn't mention here in the letter. And then we get to see the guy's name on the letter, Martin Crackhorn. Just to recap from both the diary and the letter that we just read, those two are pharmaceutical researchers who has been conducting and experimenting a virus that is considered a biological weapon. There was an accident in the underground labs which occurred in the month of May, 2 months before STARS started the investigation on the bizarre murder cases that happened outside of Raccoon City. But saying all that stuff sounds like this was all planned, and we were right to think that. After exploring the hallway and unlocking this door, we must discard our key and proceed onward, which takes us into a small hallway where we find the dead body of Richard from Bravo Team. It looks like he's been attacked by a giant-ass snake. And again, we're looting his corpse for ammunition just like we did with Kenneth. It's not like they're going to need it after they were killed in action. After gathering the supplies and finding the key that goes into the attic, we get our first boss fight. A giant snake that killed Richard, but most Resident Evil fans call him Yawn because of his open mouth. So not only does this virus turn people into zombies, but it also enlarges reptiles as well, which kind of makes me wonder what kind of virus does that. After shotgunning it to shit and it retreats, we get our first crest. I forgot to mention that you need to solve puzzles and also defeating Yawn in order to get all 4 crests in order to enter the courtyard. If you're playing as Chris Redfield, it's gonna be difficult just to juggle all that around with the 6-box inventory. After walking through the courtyard and entering the guardhouse is where shit gets weird. Going into this bar area, I thought I was going to kill more zombies, only to be attacked by giant spiders that occupies in the room. And yes, I said giant spiders. I didn't stutter, I didn't even make this shit up. There are giant spiders that are in the bar. Upon looking at them, they are tarantulas that are the size of a horse. So not only does this virus turn people and dogs into zombies and enlarging reptiles, it also enlarges bugs as well. What's next? A common houseplant that gains sentient?
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Are you being fucking serious right now? I'm being attacked by a fucking plant. And here's Rebecca Chambers just coming to the rescue. Thank fucking God. My biggest question is, how the fuck does she even get to the guardhouse where I'm at? It doesn't matter anymore. We're taking control of Rebecca Chambers and have to make a chemical compound that would slow down Plant 42. The chemical compound in question is called the V-Jolt, which would slow down Plant 42's attack defense, and that's when you basically kill it. According to the files, Plant 42's roots is actually in the laboratory basement of this guardhouse known as the Aqua Room.
Wait a minute, how the fuck could Electroplant reach the basement? And hold on, are those sharks?
Yeah, I can't believe it either, and to answer your question, yeah, it somehow ended up in the basement, and the reasons how it got into the basement is through the ventilation shaft. According to the files, the scientists were impressed that Plant 42 was growing at an alarming rate after the lab accident. The scientists can't even remember what plant it was before Plant 42's transformation. After neutralizing its growth, there is still a fight with Plant 42. Seeing Plant 42 just flying about really does show that this thing is actually sentient. Grab yourself a weapon and go to town on its ass.
If you even got an ass!
And boom goes the dynamite. We finally got the last mansion key in order to get into the last rooms we couldn't enter. Rebecca Chambers greets you outside and tells you that she is making some sort of a chemical compound that would be useful in combat. Step inside the chemical station and she will treat your wounds with whatever medical supplies she has. After she treats your wounds, she drops the biggest bombshell about the medicines that are on the shelf.
Most of these medicines are from Umbrella.
What's Umbrella?
Don't you know? It's a large-scale pharmaceutical company based in Raccoon City.
Oh, I see.
After reading Martin Crackhorn's will, we finally get to find out who the pharmaceutical company that he works for. Umbrella Corporation. Rook, could you please give them the details?
A legitimate and powerful pharmaceutical company with a vast network of subsidiaries covering various industries like cosmetics, consumer products, and even defense. Umbrella's core business involved researching and developing viruses, such as the T-virus, for the creation of bioorganic weapons.
And Oswald E. Spencer, who happens to be the co-founder of Umbrella, has a hidden motive. With this information in mind, shit really just got serious. Stepping outside to the hallway, we get to reunite with Captain Wesker. He tells you that he and Jill got separated when the monster showed up in the main hall, and he tells you that there are still locked doors in the mansion itself. There's even this one line that he says that ammo is completely scarce.
We have to complete this mission. Whether we escape or stay and look for Jill, we don't have many bullets left, and we can't even protect ourselves.
This dialogue line just kind of reminds you that this is a survival horror that you need to conserve your ammo. Heading back to the mansion, we get a radio call from helicopter pilot Brad Vicker, who is still flying around. It seems like the radio communications between you and him are slim to none, as he can't hear you and you can hear him. After that interaction, we finally made it back to the mansion and check in the rooms one last time.
What the absolute monkey fuck is that?
Those are Hunter Alphas. In fact, those are the ones that was mentioned in the Keeper's Diary of being as a skinless gorilla. So not only they made a virus that's biological weapon, but they also made these guys from human and reptile DNA. Somebody needs to call the president because we have an infestation here. Going up the stairs and killing Hunter Alphas, we make our way back to the fireplace room and enter the loft area. Cause now we're having another snake fight with Yawn. And for whatever reason, he comes out of this fireplace pretty much in the same crawl space that is in the attic. And what's wrong with this room is that this is incredibly small versus the attic being as spacious. Trust me, I had to look at this footage and have to determine how in the fuck could someone else actually defeat Yawn in this small, tiny-ass room. Like seriously, no magnum pistol, nothing? Aside from the room being as small as a 2-inch dick, he did leave a hole there that you could just jump into. In fact, this is the only linear pathway in order to get to the second floor by just jumping into the basement meat locker, which ends up into the kitchen, which has the elevator that you could just ride up to the second floor.
Jesus Christ, that's a lot to get to the elevator that takes you to the second floor. But wait a minute, why not take the door that leads into the second floor hallway? It would have been much easier just to do that instead of fighting Yawn.
I mean, yeah, we could do that if we were playing as Jill Valentine, but instead we're playing as Chris Redfield, and this is the only way. The downside is that he doesn't even have the password towards that door, unlike Jill Valentine, where she can actually receive the password from Barry Burton just getting out of the hole. So in other words, this section of the hallway is complete dead end, and it's rendered pointless. This little closet that is not far from the elevator has the battery, which you need to power the lift that is in the back courtyard. The double doors near the elevator takes you into the library where you need the mode disc and also find an important clue that is in the library. Exhibit A, we get a scrapbook that has all the newspaper clippings about the mysterious murder that's outside of Raccoon City. In fact, this was published 2 months ago in the month of May and also the month of June. Somebody's been keeping tabs of the Spencer's mansion of what is going on here. Aside from someone watching over the situation, we get ourselves the first modes disc. This is one of the 3 mode discs that you need in order to get the perfect ending. Since now that we have 2 important items, let's search around for more clues. Exhibit B, we have orders from White Umbrella. It appears that somebody else, however, not only of course is keeping tabs of what is going on in the Spencer's mansion, but someone is spying on us. In fact, reading from this sounds like this is planned. After discovering and finding out that it was Umbrella, we make our way back to the courtyard. The reasons we needed the battery is to activate the second elevator just so that way we can have access to the secret tunnel that's behind the waterfall. And sure enough, there is a tunnel that is behind the waterfall. So not only Oswald E. Spencer has himself a mansion, a guardhouse, even including a back courtyard, he now has a freaking tunnel that is directly behind the waterfall. Now I'm really convinced that this guy is paranoid from everybody else just to discover his secret laboratory. Upon exploring, we find Enrico, the captain of Bravo team.
Enrico!
Don't come any closer, Chris.
Wait, what happened?
Double crosser!
Don't!
Hell. Umbrella.
Who is it? Is someone there? Double crosser? What did he mean by that?
It means that there's a traitor among the STARS team. So not only we have someone that knows exactly what the fuck is going on in the Spencer's mansion and is watching us, Now we have a traitor that is among the STARS team. This game came way before Among Us was a thing. After traversing and killing a motherfucking spider in this motherfucking tunnel, we come across a second boulder trap, but also has a room that's hidden behind the rotating tunnel. And trust me, this took 3 fucking times just to actually get into the room. In this room, it's the exact same puzzle as the one that is in the library where you have to like move the statue in its pressure plate. In fact, some of the puzzles are so damn easy that I'm just gonna have to skip ahead a bit. Upon exiting out of the tunnel, you discovered a fountain that requires 2 medallions in order to have access to the underground lab. Taking the elevator to the secret laboratory is the point of no return. So unless you explored the previous rooms and just collected ammo and healing items, well, tough luck, there is no backtracking after this. I genuinely sure as shit would like to know who the fuck thought it was a good idea just to have a ladder just to have access to this laboratory. Cause I genuinely figured that they might have used the elevator that is actually, of course, the same one that we took down on it, but there doesn't seem to be an elevator door, nothing in the laboratory. But no, they had to take the ladder. And as like usual, there are zombies in the laboratory, but no hunters, thank fucking Christ. But instead, we got some naked shamblers that are just shambling about. Stepping inside this room, we have a projector film wheel that we can use later, and also a computer that we can use in order to unlock all the doors that are actually in the facility. The reasons it was locked in the first place is mainly due to the emergency of what is happening in the laboratory. Mainly due to the virus that they were researching and experimenting as a bioweapon. As I'm sitting here just trying to gain access to one of the floors that needs a password, I just can't help but to feel that someone else is just watching over the situation, but also spying on us the entire time. And not to mention there's a traitor among us. Enrico suspected Chris being as the traitor, which I don't see him working for Umbrella, judging by how he's been in the Air Force, before joining STARS team at the Raccoon City Police Department.
The only person who is alive in Alpha Team is Captain Albert Wesker. Not much is said about him other than he was captain of STARS team for 2 years. Like we're talking since 1996, when STARS was created.
That was my first thought too. But without any evidence, there is no way of confirming that he is the traitor. Upon unlocking all the doors and going into the visual room, we find a memo that regards about the security system. But there's one name that stood out among the rest, Albert Wesker. Most people will look at it in disbelief, but trust me, there is of course more evidence that, sure enough, he is part of Umbrella. My theory is that he must have caused the accident that is in the laboratory and also the Spencer's mansion, and was watching over it for 2 months before deploying STARS members to investigate the bizarre murder cases.
Partially due to Oswald E. Spencer's request.
Which I think you may be right, Rook. That Oswald E. Spencer must have orchestrated this entire thing, and having Albert Wesker to do the dirty work. After that discovery, we make our way to the generator just so that way we could just power up the elevator to the 4th floor. And we're introduced with a newer enemy, the Fleamen. Judging by the size of them, I would assume they are the early prototypes before the Alpha Hunters. And it appears that they are nesting at the back of the generator room. I forgot to mention that there is a door that leads into the prison cell, which you need 3 MODISC in order to go through the door. The one MODISC is in the library in the Spencer's mansion that I mentioned previously, the one is in the tunnel behind the second boulder, and the other one is in the laboratory.
Chris!
Jill!
It appears that Albert Wesker had locked her up in a prison cell for further experimentation. Or execution, I'm not entirely for sure. After that little reunion, it's time for the boss fight. You meet Wesker at the third floor basement, and it's revealed that yes, he is the traitor that Enrico mentioned about a traitor among stars. After that villain monologue, we get to see the Tyrant.
That thing is one ugly motherfucker, sir.
Oh, I agree with you, but the sad thing is, he's not one bad motherfucker, since he's just a prototype. Hell, even Chris is laughing at the sheer ludicrousness.
Wesker, you're pitiful. This is your savior? You say this failure is your savior?
I love how Chris is just nonchalantly about this, and Wesker proving his point by letting that thing out to kill Chris.
Go to hell. Jill will join you too.
But turns around and kills him instead before going after Chris.
Which I gotta have to say is the most brutal fucking death scene I have ever seen that should have been on like 1,000 Ways to Die. But I digress because now you're fighting this abomination that's let loose.
You can't kill me!
And since we killed this motherfucking thing, let's get the fuck out of here. Rebecca Chambers mentions about the self-destruct system that they're planning to destroy every single last thing from the face of the earth. Even Chris agrees on this whole idea of just setting off the self-destruct system and leaving this entire place. The laboratory, the Spence's mansion, everything all going to be explode in the one ball of fire. Hell, even Frank Horrigan from Fallout 2 can approve this message.
You and your muty bastard friends are gonna join me in a big ol' mushroom cloud send-off. I just triggered the self-destruct. The work will go on. You didn't do nothing here except seal your own death warrants. Duty. Honor. Courage. Semper Fi.
That's goddamn cheesy, sir.
It was worth it, and you goddamn know it. After rescuing Jill and making her way to the elevator, there's still that one last boss fight with Tyrant. But this is only after you find the flare and activate it at the helipad.
Gotta be fucking kidding.
That's it. I've had it with this ugly motherfucker in this motherfucking mansion. Let's kill this son of a bitch.
Way ahead of you.
Chris, use it! Destroy the monsters with it!
Fuck yeah, Brad Vicker to the rescue. Smile, you son of a bitch!
America, fuck yeah, we did it.
Amen, brother. It is fucking glorious. And hey, we got the S-ranked ending. While the game came out in 1996, this is still an all-time classic and would be the biggest franchise later on in the years following.
But we're not ending this video just yet, cause now we have a remake to take a look.
Now that's what I call a 2-for-1 deal. The premise and story is still the same as it was from the original, only now it's a lot more detailed and a lot more polished. The significant difference between the original and the remake is that there are newer rooms, newer puzzles, just to add the challenge. Hell, there's even this part where you can actually save Richard, which he saves you later on, which is a big character step up than his original counterpart. I forgot to mention that Forrest is actually in the original, which is upstairs in the terrace balcony. In the remake, he's introduced as a fast zombie and an explosive zombie in one of the highest difficulty, which really adds the replay value and the challenge due to this game's popularity. There's even a new zombie that's introduced into the remake called the Crimson Head. Judging by their appearance, they run and attack more just like the Hunter Alphas. But actually, judging by their skin color, it looks exactly like the Licker from Resident Evil 2, that was later introduced in the sequel as a bioweapon. But here, we get to see partially of the metamorphic stage before he became a Licker, which is a very unique touch by the developers.
And then we are introduced to a new monster named Lisa Trevor. Lisa was a human test subject forced to undergo a plethora of biological experiments conducted by the nefarious Umbrella Corporation,
which she's been experimented on since 1967, which shows how fucked up Umbrella is. There's really not much to go off of here, other than it's the exact same game, but this one has a lot more detail, more polish, and the writing is a lot more better than its original. Which, sadly, the original is still a classic in my heart. Say what you will about the original or the remake, I still like these two side-by-side comparison. And they're just unique in every different ways. So strap yourself in for the next episode, where I'm about to talk about the knockoffs of Resident Evil. The ones that try to ride the coattails, but faded into obscurity in video gaming history.
And it's time to say goodbye to all of you. But I'll be seeing you again very soon. Goodbye.